How Nicolas Cage blew $150 million. The man who bought a dinosaur. Imagine for a second that you are the biggest movie star in the world. It's the year 2005. You just won an Oscar. You are the face of National Treasure, Face Off, and gone in 60 seconds. Studios are paying you $20 million per movie. You have the world at your feet. You accumulate a personal fortune estimated at $150 million. That is enough money to live like a king for 10 lifetimes. It is enough money so that your great-grandchildren never have to work a day in their lives. Now fast forward the movie 5 years. You are broke. You owe the IRS $14 million in back taxes. The banks are foreclosing on your homes. You are suing your own business manager, and you are forced to accept roles in terrible, low-budget movies, one after another, just to put food on the table. This is not a fiction movie. This is the real life of Nicolas Cage. We all know the memes, the screaming, and the over-the-top acting. But very few people know his financial horror story. Nicolas Cage is the perfect example, the patient zero, of what financial stupidity can do to a person, no matter how many zeros are on their paycheck. Today, we are not just going to gossip about what he bought, although, believe me, it is fascinating. Today we are going to use Nicolas Cage as a mirror, because I guarantee you something. You are making the exact same mistakes he did. Maybe you aren't buying castles in Germany, but the psychology behind your credit card and his is identical. Get ready, because we are going to dissect how to lose $150 million in record time. The Henry Syndrome, the fallacy of high income. The first mistake Cage made, and the mistake that 90% of the upper middle class makes, is a confusion of terms. He confused income with wealth. Listen to me closely because this hurts. Earning a lot of money does not make you rich. Spending less than you earn and investing the difference is what makes you rich. In Wall Street, there is a term for people like Nicolas Cage. They call them Henrys. Henry, high earner, not rich yet. Nicolas Cage was earning $20 million a year, but his lifestyle cost $21 million a year. Mathematically, if you earn 20 and spend 21, you are poorer than the guy who earns 1 and spends 0.5. Here comes a brutal economic law called Parkinson's Law. This law states that expenses will always rise to meet income. Has this happened to you? You get a raise at work and you say, "Great, I'm going to save." But 3 months later, magically, the money is gone. You moved to a more expensive apartment, you bought brand-name clothes, you started eating at nicer restaurants. Nicolas Cage took Parkinson's Law to the extreme. He had no cap. He had no budget. He believed the money faucet from Hollywood would never turn off. And that is the fatal error. Assuming that your future self will always earn the same or more than your present self. Spoiler alert, life happens. And when the faucet turns off, if you don't have a tank in reserve, you die of thirst. The Museum of Stupidity, Assets versus Liabilities. Now, let's talk about the shopping spree. What does one spend $150 million on? Nicolas Cage didn't just spend money, he set it on fire. But his mistake wasn't just buying expensive things. His mistake was collecting liabilities with maintenance costs. Let's analyze his investment portfolio. Number 1, absurd real estate. He bought 15 residences simultaneously. This included a medieval castle in Germany that was crumbling and needed millions in renovations, and the famous La Laurie Mansion in New Orleans, which was supposedly haunted. He bought it just to get inspiration for a horror novel he never wrote. Number 2, the islands. He bought 2 private islands in the Bahamas. The problem? They were infested with mosquitoes and had no electricity or running water. They were uninhabitable, wild land. Number 3, the tomb. This is real. He bought a 9-foot-tall stone pyramid in a New Orleans cemetery to be buried in. He paid for a grave for a living man. That is dead capital, literally. Number 4, the Holy Grail of Stupidity, a 67-million-year-old Tarbosaurus skull. Here is the fun fact. Cage entered a bidding war against Leonardo DiCaprio. Both wanted the skull. Cage won the auction for $276,000. He felt like the king of the world. The problem? The skull turned out to be stolen from Mongolia. The Department of Homeland Security intervened, and Cage had to return the skull. He lost the money, and he lost the bone. What is the financial lesson here? Cage thought he was buying assets. He thought, this castle will go up in value, this Superman comic book will go up in value. But he forgot the carrying cost. A castle isn't an asset if you don't rent it out. It is a giant liability. You have to pay property taxes, security, landscaping, heating, and repairs. It is estimated that just maintaining his houses and his quirks cost Cage over $250,000 per month. Even if he didn't buy anything new, he needed $250,000 every 30 days just to keep what he already had. You do the same thing on a smaller scale. When you buy that luxury car on credit, you don't just pay the monthly note. You force yourself to pay for premium insurance, premium gas, and expensive dealership service. You are building your own little German castle that eats your paycheck. The psychology of credit. The pain of paying. How did he finance all of this? With debt and future cash flow. Here is where the credit card trap and the psychology of money come in. There is a concept in behavioral economics called the pain of paying. If you go to a store and you have to count out 50 $20 bills to buy a TV, your brain registers pain. You physically feel the money leaving your hand. But if you swipe a plastic card, or worse, use Apple Pay with your watch, you feel nothing. The abstraction of money makes us spend more. Nicolas Cage lived in a world of total abstraction. He had business managers, accountants, and black cards. He would say, "I want that," and it would appear. He never saw the money leave. This is what banks want you to do. They want you to disconnect the pleasure of the purchase from the pain of the payment. They tell you, buy it today, pay for it in 2026. By deferring the pain, you increase consumption. Cage spent as if he had infinite funds because he had no contact with the reality of his bank accounts. Many of you live like this. The statement arrives at the end of the month, and you have a heart attack. When did I spend $2,000 on Uber Eats and Amazon? It happened the moment you stopped feeling the money. When the music stops, the liquidity crisis. Everything was going fine as long as Cage kept making blockbuster movies. The flow of new money plugged the holes of the spending. But in 2008 and 2009, the perfect storm hit. First, the global financial crisis. The real estate market crashed. The value of his mansions and castles plummeted. Second, the IRS, the taxman, audited his accounts and discovered that Cage owed $14 million in back taxes. This is where Cage learned the brutal difference between net worth and liquidity. Cage had things. He had castles, comics, and cars. But you cannot pay the IRS with a dinosaur skull. The government wants cash. Cage was illiquid. When you have urgent debts and no cash, you are forced to do the worst thing an investor can do: a fire sale. He had to sell his properties in a panic to pay Uncle Sam. He sold his California home for $10 million when he was asking for $35 million. He sold his German castle for a massive loss. He sold his prized comic book collection, including Action Comics #1, in a rush. The vultures smelled blood. They knew he was desperate, so they offered him pennies on the dollar. He lost the vast majority of his fortune simply because he didn't have an emergency fund. Yes, even if you earn $20 million, you need an emergency fund. Modern slavery. The video-on-demand era. And here we get to the sad part of the story. Have you noticed that between 2010 and 2020, Nicolas Cage appeared in 5 or 6 movies a year, and almost all of them were straight-to-DVD garbage? Generic action movies, nonsensical plots, low budgets. People mocked him. Haha, Cage doesn't know how to act anymore. It wasn't that he didn't know how to act. It was that he had to work. Nicolas Cage became a slave to his debts. He could no longer choose scripts for art. He couldn't wait for the perfect Martin Scorsese project. He had to accept every single check placed in front of him to pay the IRS and his creditors. He lost his artistic freedom. He lost control of his career. He spent a decade working like a factory laborer of acting, just to clean up his mess. This is what debt does to you. Maybe you aren't an actor. But if you have credit card debt up to your neck, you are not free. You cannot quit the job you hate. You cannot start that business you dream of. You cannot take a sabbatical year. You have to wake up every Monday to tolerate a boss you despise because if you miss a paycheck, the bank takes your car. That is not life. Those are golden handcuffs. Debt takes away the option to say no. Conclusion: how to not be a cage. Fortunately, this story has a somewhat happy ending. In 2022, Nicolas Cage announced that he had finally finished paying off all his debts. It took him over 12 years of forced labor, but he is free. And interestingly, now that he is free, he has started making great movies again, like Pig or Dream Scenario. When he recovered his financial freedom, he recovered his talent. But you do not have a $150 million margin of error. If you make Cage's mistakes, you won't recover in 10 years. You might never recover. So here is the summary to avoid becoming a Nicolas Cage. Income is not wealth. Do not upgrade your lifestyle every time you get a raise. Keep your fixed costs low. Beware of liabilities. Do not buy things that eat food, maintenance, if you don't have assets that pay for them. A luxury car is a money vampire. Liquidity is king. Always have cash available. Do not have all your money trapped in things you cannot sell quickly. Respect the taxman. Pay your taxes first. The government is the only creditor that can put you in jail. Buy freedom, not status. Cage bought status, castles, islands, and lost his freedom. Use your money to buy your time, not to impress strangers. Nicolas Cage is a national treasure as an actor, but as a financial advisor, he is a disaster. Laugh at his memes, enjoy his movies, but for the love of God, do not copy his finances. I'm your financial coach, and if you don't want to end up selling your Funko collection to pay rent, subscribe to this channel. Class dismissed.